Hey everybody, Andrew here with Ariously, and today we're going to be doing another video comparison. We're going to be comparing the Evil Wreckoning and the Santa Cruz Hightower LT. So at the end of last year, I had the privilege to ride both of these bikes. The Evil Wreckoning was a friend of mine's. It was a kind of a custom frame-up build, so it had a lot of nice boutique parts on there. The other bike was a stock S-build Santa Cruz Hightower LT, phenomenal bike. And the long travel 29er segment right now is really hot, and these bikes do come up in a lot of questions, so I want to try and answer some for you. Now, I don't have the bikes here today, but I did have a lot of footage that I captured back when I recorded both bikes, so I'm going to be using a lot of that. And again, if you have any questions about both bikes, I appreciate all the questions you guys ask, and I'd love to answer them. So let's dive into the bikes. All right, so let's take a look at the Evil Wreckoning. The Evil Wreckoning is a full carbon fiber long travel 29er, 161 millimeters of travel out back and 160 millimeters up front. The one that I rode had 160, and if you buy the GX Eagle build, it has 160 as well as all their other builds. Now, in terms of builds, the GX Eagle build comes in at just under $5,300. You get the GX Eagle drivetrain, RockShox suspension, so Lyric fork up front. I think a really good price considering Evil's kind of not quite boutique, but they're kind of a more specialized bike brand. So the bike is beautiful. I think it's a really good looking bike. It's got that Dave Weagle suspension on there. Not like the DW Link bikes, I guess, per se, but it is a suspension designed by Dave Weagle, which is essentially a single pivot bike. But it's a great suspension platform, and it's a really rides very well. On the Santa Cruz side, that's also a full carbon fiber long travel 29er, slightly less on the travel. 150 millimeters out back and 150 millimeters up front. If you want to get it 160, you'll have to do some fork magic to get that Fox extended out to 160 millimeters. The GX build on the Hightower LT comes in just under $4,900. And with that, again, just kind of like the Evil, you get full GX Eagle drivetrain, Fox suspension this time, so a 36 up front and a DPX out in the back. I think for long travel 29ers carbon fiber, that's a phenomenal price range for that type of bike, and you can even get one under $4,000 in their R build, which slightly, I guess, worse components, but for a full carbon fiber enduro 29er mountain bike, I don't know what could touch that in terms of price. So that's kind of how both look stack up on paper. So now let's talk about how they ride. All right, so both bikes that I rode were size larges. I would say the Reckoning in the size large was almost perfect for me. I don't think I'd ever consider going up to an XL, even if I was going to, just do nothing but downhill. I think that large fit very well. The large Hightower LT, it fit good. I think it could be, if you're in that 6 foot range like I am, I'm 6 foot with shoes and about 32-inch inseam. You could go large or XL, and I've even heard people going to a medium. And again, that's just going to depend on body type. There's no right formula for an individual person in terms of sizing. I really like saying to go try the bike if you can and see how it feels. So for me, I eventually went XL for my personal bike, but the large felt really good in terms of just putting in all day miles. Just kind of want to compare that, on the sizes between the two. So climbing, so I'll start with the Evil. I was going into my review on the Reckoning thinking that the Evil was going to suck at climbing. It's a big bike. It just looks big. The frame looks big. Just the bike, it's a physically big bike. But surprisingly, it actually climbed pretty well, considering what it is. And you hear a lot of people saying like, oh, well, climb's okay, but descend's great. I hate to place it in that category, but there is some bob in there. It's not the most efficient pedaling in terms of climbing. It does really good though in technical sections. So if you come into more square-edged hits, a little bit of chatter in the trail, the Evil suspension really comes alive and helps soaks that up and keeps traction and moving you forward. So I will say that is a shining point on the Reckoning's climbing potential. If you have a climb switch on your shock, I would say just throw that to the climb position and you're kind of just rocketing up climbs. It really firms up that DW platform and it climbs really well. So that said, it's definitely more of a, if you got a long climb in front of you, throw that switch on and just kind of forget about it. Now the Santa Cruz Hightower LT, it does climb better. It's more efficient. There's a lot less bob in the pedal stroke. When you really need to, put some power down on the climbs, you really feel it move forward and not just kind of sagging and bouncing up and down. However, on the technical side of things, the LT does struggle a little bit. It's just not as very reactive as some of their suspension designs. It's almost like when you come over a bump, the bike wants to just bump you up and then you just kind of compress down when you come back down. The suspension really doesn't react as fast as others. So it does worse in technical climbing, and because I feel you kind of get a little unbalanced in technical sections, it can maybe throw your traction off a little bit. So keep that in mind. If all of your climbs are very technical, you might struggle with the LT a little bit. Body position wise, I would say the large Reckoning felt a little bit more stretched out. The large LT for me felt about spot on. If I was going to buy a bike that I just wanted to get a lot of vertical miles in, also have a blast ascending, I think a large would fit really good. The XL I'm still kind of growing into. So let's talk about descending now. I'll start with the LT this time. The LT is a good descender. It is very scalpel-like. You really have to pick your lines, and when you do hit those lines, it performs very well. The suspension can be described as vague, and I would have to agree. Sometimes you just don't feel what it's doing back there. Oddly enough, though, you still have all the traction, yet you just don't feel what it's doing. Some people just don't like that. They like to know what's going on and like feedback from the bike. In terms of the fork, the Fox 36 is really stiff. Really, whatever direction you point it in, it handles it very well. The grip damper and that performance Fox, I think, is really good. I think underrated. I think people are always trying to go for that Fit 4 or the RC2, and I think the grip damper is really good. So it is definitely, again, more scalpel-like. You really have to pick your lines, and it's going to be less forgiving. Now, in terms of the Reckoning was probably one of the best descending bikes I've ever ridden. It just literally floats and erases everything in the trail. And oddly enough, it's still progressive enough where you're not going to feel it bottom out very much. But man, it's just, you can point it in any direction, at any angle, it's going to soak it up, and it was great. Now, the bike that I had Fox suspension, had the Fox X2, which is kind of more of a downhill shock, and it also had a Fox 36, with that fancier damper, and man, it just floated over everything. So I would say descending wise, if you're more of a bike park person, or in your mind that your climbs are just to get you to your descents, the Reckoning is going to give you the biggest smile on your face when you're coming down. So before we get to intangibles about the bike, I just wanted to comment really quick on the pedaling. I'm not talking about climbing. I'm just talking about out of saddle sprinting. The Reckoning definitely bobs up and down when you pedal. You worry about hitting the ground, hitting rocks. It's just, I don't know, it just bobs up and down when you pedal. It doesn't really give you that sensation of accelerating forward. So if you do race and there's parts where you are going to have to get out of the saddle and pedal, you may consider shorter cranks, or you just may have to be a little bit more conscious of where you're pedaling at. The LT, It is more efficient. You definitely feel yourself accelerating forward when you put power to the ground. It does have a little bit of bob. I mean, it's not impervious to that, but it definitely is going to, if make or break section is you putting power down, the LT will definitely win that sprint, I think, every single time. All right, so here's something that I like to talk about, which is intangibles, things that you may have to think about before you purchase these bikes, maybe things that you may overlook that could impact you as an owner of these bikes. So I'm going to start off with warranty. So Santa Cruz has a lifetime warranty to the original purchaser, which is some companies do, some people don't, but it really gives you peace of mind. They do back their stuff really well. There's videos floating around on the internet of their carbon frames stress test against alloy frames. Call it what you want, but they've got a really good warranty program. So I feel really comfortable behind that. Now the Evil, they have had their share of bad luck when it comes to frame construction. You can kind of research that in forums and whatnot. I don't think that's carried over to their current batch of bikes, like the following Insurgent, Reckoning. I think the current makeup that they have right now is really, really good. But they only have a 3-year limited warranty to the original purchaser. So some things to consider. They both have crash replacement, which basically means if you crash your bike, then they will try and get you the cheapest price for a frame to get you back in riding. Now on the Reckoning, you do get some cool things. You get an integrated chain guide. I love chain guides. I'll probably never ride a bike without one if I'm going to race. So it's kind of cool that you have it. It's also got an integrated sag meter. So if you run basically any suspension, not rock shocks that have the sag markers on the shock, it basically has got a little sag meter where you can tell where you need to be when you're 30%. It's got a threaded bottom bracket, so I love that as well. Really easy to service. All you need is a bottom bracket wrench to unscrew each cup. Also has, you can get it with adjustable headset cups, so you can adjust the geometry a little bit. So it's actually got 2 ways of adjustability. You've got flip chips where you can adjust geometry there, and then you also have in the headset cups where you can adjust geometry there to make it maybe not quite the descending monster that it wants to be, and you can make it a little bit more higher bottom bracket, maybe a little bit more pedal friendly. In terms of the Santa Cruz, again, that lifetime warranty is something to consider. The VPP link is something that you may want to be aware of. Now they do have lifetime replacement on their bearings, but not a lot of people have the equipment to pull their bearings out. So if you don't look after the VPP link very well on any Santa Cruz bike, wet conditions, mud and dirt can fling forward onto the VPP link, and then what you end up doing is you take like a spray hose, or maybe you don't, but you end up trying to spray all that mud and dirt out of there, and that's where most of your bearings are on those bikes. And on my last Hightower, after a season of doing that, at the end of the year when I sold it, you could definitely feel it wasn't as smooth, and it kind of had steps in the motion. You didn't feel it when it was, with the shock on, and it was fully, aired out. But you definitely could feel it when you pulled the shock off and you were just trying to move it without anything. There is a little grease port though that you can get a little grease gun for. Your Santa Cruz dealer may have it, so you can inject grease in there to try and keep it as service as possible. And unlike the Reckoning, the Santa Cruz Hightower doesn't have headset cups. So it's a fully integrated headset. So basically the cups are molded into the carbon fiber frame. So all you do is drop bearings in and out. So you have no adjustability in terms of trying to do like an angle set. There's no flip chip on the Santa Cruz bike. So if you're looking into it thinking, oh, I want to try and make it slacker or make it steeper, you can only do that with offset bushings, which I have tried and I don't personally like as much versus like a flip chip or a headset cup. Well, hey guys, thanks for coming out and hanging out with me and watching this review. If you find it informational or you learned something, please drop a like on the video. If you like what I'm doing or like the channel, please like and subscribe. I'm going to try and doing more of these comparisons, you know, as I keep doing more bikes. I've got a lot of these planned out that, you know, I want to do. So if you have any questions about the two bikes or feel like there's something that I missed, definitely please comment. And I try and get back to you as fast as I can. I try and answer every one of those questions. So again, thanks for coming out and hanging out tonight and watching the video, and we'll see you next time.